blowing up the internet, with all the Mueller stuff blowing up the TV and blowing up the New York Times and blowing up all the media. Oh my God, he thought about doing something that he didn't do it, which again seems not supremely scandalous to me. There is something that is supremely scandalous, okay? There are new texts between those anti-Trump FBI agents. And one of the reasons that people don't trust the FBI, they don't trust the intel community on Trump, is because of this sort of stuff. On Thursday night, Senator Chuck Grassley released 7 pages of text between FBI counterintelligence agent Peter Strzok and his FBI paramour, Lisa Page. Those texts show that both Strzok and Page were interested in letting Hillary Clinton off the hook so as to earn the FBI's goodwill with the presumed next president. So here's what the actual text said. Page wrote to Strzok on February 25th, 2016. This is before the interview with Hillary Clinton. Quote, "One more thing. She might be our next president. The last thing you need us going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that it was more DOJ than FBI? The obvious implication, go easy on Hillary. She might be the president, and then she might get angry at the FBI for having interviewed her in nasty fashion." And Strzok wrote back, "Agreed. I called FBI counterintelligence head Bill Priestap and relayed what we discussed. He agrees. I will email you," and redacted, and someone else whose name is redacted. Another one of the texts from Page to Strzok suggested that then FBI Chief of Staff James Rybicki thought that the FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who is still on the job, should recuse himself from the Clinton matter because of his wife's relationship with Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe. Right? McCabe has recused him. Has he recused himself in the? He eventually did. He recused himself from the Clinton stuff like a week before the election, but he should have done it months before. Apparently, Page wrote, quote, "Rybicki just called to check in. He very clearly 100% believes that Andy McCabe should be recused because of the perception." So Grassley wrote a letter to the FBI's current director, Christopher Wray, quote, "In October 2015, then Director Comey said, if you know my folks, they don't give a rip about politics. They cared very much about politics to the detriment of the Bureau's mission and objectivity." So all this is really damning stuff. For all the talk about how the FBI is crystal clear, transparent, absolutely clean, for all of the talk about that is just not the case. It's just not the case. Now, does that mean that there's an FBI deep state coup to take down Trump? No, the evidence isn't all there of that, especially because there isn't a countervailing text message from Strzok to Page saying he didn't want to be staffed on the Mueller investigation because he thought there was no there. I think that Chris Wallace is basically correct when he says that we're not there on the deep state coup. Here's what Wallace said on Fox News.
Apparently, here is the Inspector General. We only found out about this in the last week, and the Inspector General was able to come up with it. So, again, look, there's a lot of things that are troubling. There are a lot of questions to ask. I fully agree that we need to pursue all of this. I'm not sure that talking about deep state coups against the president or corruption at the highest levels of the FBI, I'm not quite sure we're there yet.
Okay, and I think that's probably correct. That's why I've been saying, just wait. Hold it in abeyance. There will be evidence that comes out on some of this stuff, but every time everybody jumps ahead of the story, it comes back to bite them, right? Ron Johnson being the case in point, the senator from Wisconsin who had been talking about a secret society inside the FBI, and then yesterday he had to admit that maybe the secret society stuff was just a joke.
Senator, this text message seems to be a comment about secret society was in jest. Do you agree that it appears to be it was in jest?
It's a real possibility. Thank you all.
Okay, so that seems to be a big step down from the notion that we were all going to find out that there was this big deep state coup happening against the Trump administration. And now, with all of that said, there's a way to jump in the other direction too. So Shep Smith over on Fox News, who's made a bit of a cottage industry lately in quote unquote debunking his other Fox News colleagues, he's very upset about the Devin Nunes memo. So you remember Devin Nunes, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, and he wrote up a 4-page memo talking about improprieties inside the intelligence agencies that he thinks discredit a lot of what's happening in the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. Now, that memo's been made available to all the members of the House. Democrats are saying it's a politically driven memo. Republicans are saying that it's pretty damning. The DOJ is saying that he hasn't even looked at the underlying classified documents, but they want to redact it before it's released. Andy McCarthy over at National Review has been really good on all of this scandal-driven stuff. He has a very good piece over at National Review talking about the Nunes memo and basically saying, listen, there's nothing inherently wrong with Devin Nunes writing a memo. Maybe it's partisan, maybe it's not. That's why it's good for the American public to see it. And as for the notion that the DOJ hasn't gotten to review it and they're very upset about it, in order for this memo to be declassified, the President of the United States first has to sign off on it. There's like a 5-day delay mechanism specifically to allow the President to allow the DOJ to take a look at it, and then Trump can veto any attempt to declassify this material. So it really isn't quite as corrupt as some people are making it out to be, the memo. Now, it may turn out that it's just Nunes' attempt to distract from the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. It may be that it's an attempt to distract from the Mueller investigation. That's all quite possible, but we don't know that yet. But people are jumping to conclusions. So here's Shep Smith jumping to some conclusions.
This memo from which if there is a basis for it to be released, the Trump administration and its people could have done that. They've asked to see it. He won't even let them see it. It seems to be a classic weapon of mass distraction.
Okay, and of course the left was cheering this weapon of mass distraction. His own friends are going around talking about how this is a weapon, about how the memo is. Shep Smith's own friends at Fox News are talking about how the memo is the end of the world, and here's Shep Smith debunking them. What a hero! You know, I think everybody's jumping to conclusions a little bit too quickly. Okay. We begin with today's big news, and that is these bombshell text messages that are now coming out from the FBI. So the FBI has turned over a bunch of text messages to the Senate Judiciary Committee and the House Judiciary Committee, and these text messages are not looking good for the FBI. So first off, Bob Goodlatte, who is a Republican from Virginia, and Devin Nunes, a Republican from California, as well as Trey Gowdy, a Republican of South Carolina, issued a statement on text messages they received regarding top FBI officials. They requested all of the backlogged text messages, and here's what they say, quote, "This weekend, we met to discuss the text messages and possible next steps in our oversight of these agencies. The context of these text messages between top FBI officials are extremely troubling in terms of when key decisions were made by the Department of Justice and the FBI, by whom these decisions were made, and the evident bias exhibited by those in charge of the investigation. The omission of text messages between December 2016 and May 2017, a critical gap encompassing the FBI's Russia investigation, is equally concerning. Rather than clearing up prior FBI and DOJ actions, these recently produced documents cause us to further question the credibility and objectivity of certain officials at the FBI." So, as we mentioned yesterday on the show, there are a couple of big stories that have come out of the FBI. The first is that there are these text messages that were sent between members of the FBI regarding the way the Mueller investigation was run. The second is that hundreds of text messages apparently have gone missing. Among thousands of text messages that have gone missing, hundreds between Lisa Page, who is working on the Mueller investigation, and her paramour, Peter Strzok, who is also working on the Mueller investigation, was a top counterintelligence guy. Yesterday on Facebook Live, you should check it out on our Facebook page, we had the opportunity to talk with Representative Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, who's overseeing a lot of this stuff. He's on the Oversight Committee. And Representative Jordan was talking about the fact that they need a second independent counsel to investigate the first independent counsel because this investigation is compromised already. I did ask him a couple of the questions I've asked on the show. Why doesn't the President of the United States simply declassify the FISA warrant that was taken out against Carter Page so that we can find out whether indeed the FBI was using bad intel to target President Obama's and Hillary Clinton's political enemies? He suggested that perhaps Trump didn't want to politicize the issue. I find that unconvincing. Nonetheless, the fact is that there is the Release the Memo crew. Remember, there was a memo last week that we were talking about that supposedly lays out all of the flaws in FISA, supposedly lays out all of the problems with the FBI. This memo will be released to the public in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we are now hearing. So we'll have more information at that point. Meanwhile, according to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, this is reported over at Gateway Pundit, which is sometimes inaccurate, but here it is apparently accurate. They have 50,000 text messages that were exchanged between Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page. I don't think that statistic is correct. I think 50,000 text messages were missing. Some of those were from Strzok to Page. But Fox, well, here's what Fox News says. So let me get this right. I don't want to say something's not true. That's not true. It says more than 50,000 texts were exchanged between two FBI officials who have come under fire for exchanging anti-Trump text messages during the 2016 election, Attorney General Jeff Sessions revealed Monday. The figure surfaced as lawmakers have been pressing for answers after revelations that the FBI failed to preserve 5 months of text between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Jeff Sessions said, "We'll leave no stone unturned to confirm with certainty why these text messages are not now available to be produced, and we will use every technology available to determine whether the missing messages are recoverable from another source." I have to say, the number of documents that have gone missing, whether it's Hillary Clinton's email servers or whether it is the FBI suddenly losing tens of thousands of texts, pretty shocking stuff. The FBI servers included over 50,000 texts, and apparently the FBI system failed to retain text messages for approximately 5 months between December 14th, 2017 and May 17th, 2017. As I suggested, these dates are particularly suspicious because May 17th, 2017 is literally the date that Robert Mueller took over the investigation. And then, apparently, there's more. So John Ratcliffe, who's a Republican from Texas, he said after reviewing the text messages that he thinks there was a quote-unquote secret society of folks within the DOJ and FBI working against Trump. Here's what the Federalist reports, quote, Trey Gowdy said the explanation for the missing text may be fishier than the official explanation. He says he saw Strzok and Page discussing getting rid of text in a printout of the messages he and other members of Congress received last week. quote, lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in text that the world's premier agency somehow missed. Gowdy said, what Johnny and I saw today was a text about not keeping texts. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. Ratcliffe said, it is a strange coincidence. It is possible that these messages that were missing, perhaps it is a strange coincidence. And then Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, he went even further. He said in a radio interview on Tuesday with Jay Weber at WISN in Milwaukee, he read aloud a May 19th, 2017 text, right? So this would be 2 days after they suddenly magically recovered texts. In this text, apparently he wrote, quote, this is to Lisa Page, his mistress. You and I both know the odds are nothing about whether this investigation is going to turn up something. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there. He said he didn't actually want to join the Mueller investigation because he didn't think there was anything actually going on. Johnson said, I think that's kind of jaw-dropping. He said, in other words, Peter Strzok, who was the FBI Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Division, the man who had a plan to do something because he just couldn't abide Donald Trump being president, is saying that his gut sense is that there's no big there when it comes to the Mueller special counsel investigation. Now, I will say that it does seem like there's a conflict between this text and the implication that Strzok was basically ginning up a fake investigation in order to get Trump. Right? Suggests there was something else going on inside the FBI, but not the Trump collusion investigation, not the Mueller investigation. Because if indeed Strzok was texting his paramour, Lisa Page, and suggesting, hey, Lisa, there's nothing here, and I don't want to join the investigation about Trump-Russia collusion because I don't think there's anything there, then that does pose a different point of view than the suggestion that he was trying to craft out of whole cloth this narrative that Trump was colluding with Russia and then shove that down the throats of people over at the FBI. In other words, there's a lot of confusion going on here. They're certainly going to have Strzok testify. They're going to have Lisa Page testify. I do find it highly suspicious that the FBI is saying these messages just went missing. Now, again, if you are working for the government and messages just go missing, that is really suspicious. You're not allowed to delete government messages this way. I did get a note, by the way, from somebody who's an expert on cybersecurity, who said that it's very unlikely these messages are gone forever. They said the FBI is required to conform to NIST SP 834, Contingency Planning Guide for Federal Information Systems, which requires multiple layers of redundancy and backup. These federal continuity and contingency guidelines are designed to assure that systems and data survive multiple natural disasters and 9/11 types of events. It is not possible for a singular glitch to cause the data to be lost. Right? That means that if the data were lost, then there'd have to be some sort of organized effort, is the suggestion here. So if that is indeed the case, then there's a lot more than meets the eye here. In any case, all of this is disturbing. All of it requires investigation. I'm not going to buy into the complete Republican narrative that this was all set up from the very beginning and that it was based on bad intel and that it was created out of whole cloth by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in order to get Donald Trump. I don't know if the evidence is there for that. I will say, however, that something smells fishy here with the missing texts and with the text about a secret society and all of the rest of this. It's all confusing and it requires a lot of explication.
We will make America great again.